Hello, I'm Ron Sheldon. I'm the Technical Service Department Manager at Sound Off Signal. The following technical video is designed to give you programming and operational information. We hope you find this useful in the operation of our product. So let's get started. The products I have in front of me today are the nForce perimeter lights. The first one here is a single color. The second one here is a dual color. And this dual stacked version is a tricolor, which means each one of these have three different colors. Now, the first one here that is a single color light, we have a setup in there where you can actually have it go to cruise mode. This is the only one that allows you to do the cruise mode. It just has one color, and then when you power up the white wire, it'll go to cruise. The second one here, which is a two-color nForce light, when you go to white wire to positive, you wind up getting a steady burn. So you could have a takedown, for instance, on there. We also have a function with this light that allows it to have two separate warning patterns, a warning pattern for each of the two colored lights. Now the third one here, which is a tricolor light, allows you to have warning with all three colors flashing, or you can back it off to just two colors flashing depending upon the pattern you have. And when you go to putting it on the steady burn, it is your third color that is steady burn on this light. With your nForce perimeter light, you'll be getting an instruction sheet that'll look like this. I picked one that happens to be the Jack Grill version. It may have a different picture on here, a different part number, but the content will be the same on any one of those lights. Over in this section here, we have our specifications. Typically, this light comes in 10 to 16 volt, but it also can be special ordered in 10 to 30 volt. Our current draw is listed right here for our different LED count. This light comes in 6, 9, 12, or 18 LED count, the 18 being the tricolor, and the current draw varies and is different on each one of them, up to the maximum, which is a single 12 LED count, which is 2 amps, the lowest being 1 amp draw. So it is a very low current draw light. Now next to it here is the electrical connections and hookup. You have your red wire that goes to 12 volts, your black wire that goes to ground. Your green wire is actually set up for syncing functions, syncing two lights together, or 3, or how many ever you would like to use. You use the green wire and tie them all together. The white wire has a couple of functions, actually several. One of the functions is if you put that white wire to ground, you go through a setup table, which will be explained on the next page, where you set up whether you want to change patterns, whether you want to back up a pattern, whether you want to go factory preset, pattern reset, and that type of thing I'll go into in just a few minutes. The white wire also on these lights has what's called a secondary function. And that secondary function allows the light to do another function. Our single color light gives us a cruise function. Our dual and tricolor lights give us a solid or steady burn, as in a takedown function. Now on the second page here, basically gives the physical drawings or a cutout version of how to mount and pre-drill your holes in a vehicle, in a bumper, or wherever you may be putting this light. You can follow the templates here to make your hole selections and your cord exits. Over here we get into actually explaining the functions of the secondary function for the single, which the secondary function for the single colored light is a cruise mode, meaning low power and on steady. The secondary function for the dual color or tricolor is a steady burn function, which is like a takedown. Goes into the pattern setup, and also the table down below is when you take that white wire and you place it to ground. This table is set up such that the light will change. You don't need to count seconds or any of that type of thing. The light will change functions for each one of these settings. I'll give you an example. It goes high, low, off, high, low, off, and then high again. And what happens in each one of these functions, once it goes to that state, let's say you want to change a pattern. That's the very first one. You just touch the white wire to ground and you'll change patterns. But let's say you want to back up a pattern. So what you'll do is you'll go high, low, and then remove the wire from ground, and the light will back up a pattern. And that's how this table works, and I will walk you through that function on the light in just a few minutes. The last page goes through the patterns that are available in each light. The first one here is the single color light, and it goes through the patterns that's available on the single color light. The second one is single and dual both together on one, because you can thumb through those and get to the second color. So you have an option of a single color or a dual color flash pattern. On the last one here, you have dual or tricolor, and you're able to get two colors flashing as a warning pattern, or you can get all three colors flashing in a warning pattern, and I'll demonstrate that for you also. The first light that we're going to walk through the operation of is the single colored nForce perimeter light. This light is a red light. Like I said before, the red wire goes to 12 volts and your black wire goes to ground. And right now it's flashing the first pattern and the number 1 pattern. The white wire I had mentioned before in the instruction sheet, for the setup purposes, we go to ground. And the first high on the setup, when I say high, that means that the light is solid on and fully bright, is a pattern change. Every time I touch the white wire to ground, I will change the flash pattern of the light in that fashion there, okay? That's the first one. Now if I go high, low, and remove the white wire, I'll back up 1 pattern. So the very first one, high, is changing patterns forward, and the second one on the list is high, low. I remove the white wire, I back up a pattern. Now this light, because it is a single colored light, doesn't have the next function, which winds up being a color swap. It does not do that because we only have 1 color. But the fourth one on there, which would be high, low, off, high, and I remove the white wire, basically is a sequence type. And we have 2 different ones, a sequence 1 and sequence 2. Now should I have 2 lights synced together, meaning the green wire on both lights are tied together, and I want the 2 lights to alternate back and forth, I'll put one on sequence number 1 and one on sequence number 2. So I'll only go into one light and I'll change that sequence, and then they'll alternate back and forth. If I wanted to be simultaneous or flashed together, I'll have them both on the same sequence number. Okay? Now, the 5th one in the series of the patterns is high, low, off, high, low, and remove the white wire, is another function that this light does not have, and that's a separate colored light because it's only got 1 color. Now the last 2 in that setup table are pattern reset, which will reset the light back to the first pattern, and I'll demonstrate that one. High, low, off, high, low, off, remove my white wire, and I go back to pattern number 1. So I can always get back home no matter where I am in the patterns. And the final one, which is the 3rd high in the setup table, will be a factory preset, which means it's going to take you back to pattern 1. It's going to put your sequence back to sequence number 1 and put everything back to the exact same way it came from the factory, so you can always get home. One other function that this light has is called the cruise mode function, and that's where we take the white wire and we touch it to 12 volts. And as you notice, the light has dimmed and it is steady on. It's roughly about 10% brightness and it's steady burn, the cruise function. The single colored lights are the only ones that have this cruise function. The other 2 in this particular setup here would wind up being a steady burn, fully bright, like a takedown. Okay? So that is our single colored nForce perimeter light. I'll switch now to our dual color perimeter light. And again, black wire to ground, red wire to 12 volts. And as you notice, it's flashing red and blue. Those are our 2 dual colors. Now, Right off the bat, I'm going to take my white wire and I'm going to touch it to 12 volts. As you see, the blue is steady burn and solid. No flashing. Remove it, we go back to them flashing back and forth. The same thing holds true on this light. If I want to change patterns, I take the white wire and I just bump it to the black wire or to ground. Each time I do that, and it's high, I change patterns. The second function on here, high, low, and remove it, is backing up a pattern. I go high, low, and remove it. I back up one pattern each time. Now, the third one is what we call the color swap. And that's where this comes in handy on the dual color and the tricolored lights. Let's say that I've got two dual colored lights next to each other, and I want one to start on the blue light for flashing, and the other one to start on the red light for flashing. So what I will do is I'll do a color swap on one of the lights, and then it will flash the opposite color first. Now you're only going to be able to see that and detect it on two lights next to each other or synced together and that type of thing. On a single light, you're not going to be able to tell, which is flashing first or second, okay, because it's going to be the same. But that's what that next function is. The fourth sequence in the setup table is a sequence. And what that does, just like I'd mentioned in the first one, if I've got two lights together and I want them simultaneous, flashing the same at the same time, I keep them both on the same sequence setting. If I want them alternating, I put one on sequence 1 and the other one on sequence 2. Then they will alternate patterns. Now, the fifth one in the setup table is the unique one only to the dual colored lights. What that does is allows you to have two separate warning colors flashing with two separate inputs. And I'm going to do that real quick here for you. We go high, low, off, high, low, and remove. Okay? If you notice, I'm not flashing blue anymore. I'm flashing just red. When you select that particular setting, what will happen is you fall back to the single color flash patterns on that last page of the instruction sheet, and you will only be flashing those patterns in the single color one. And when I power it up normally, black to ground and red to positive, I'm going to flash the primary color or the first color in a warning pattern. If I should take the white wire and touch it to 12 volts, instead of having a steady burn like I showed you at the beginning here, I will have the blue color flashing the same warning pattern as the red did. So it allows me to have a blue warning or a red warning depending upon which one I operate or which one I apply to 12 volts. But remember, I still have to have the red always to 12 volts and apply my white to 12 volts while the red is connected, and we'll get this function. Now, I'm going to change patterns, and you'll notice that when I go back and do the blue, or the secondary color, it's going to flash the same pattern as the first one. It will follow the pattern. We can only have one pattern set, but we can have two separate colors and operate off two separate different switches. Okay? Now in this pattern string, we also have the next two are the pattern reset, resetting back to pattern number 1, and factory reset, back to the factory settings. I'm going to go and do the factory reset at this point in time. What will happen is we'll go back to two colors flashing and the steady burn when I bring the white wire to 12 volts. So that is the third high. High, low, off. High, low, off. High. Remove my white wire and I'm back to pattern 1. I'm back to my separate color control being turned off, and my sequence is also back to number 1. Okay, when I take my white wire and I go to 12 volts, I get my steady burn on my secondary color. That is the difference, and this light is the only light of the three that can have that separate color or separate warning pattern with either color. Okay? Again, on this light, the green wire is used for syncing other lights. So all the green wires will be tied together to keep them in sync on the flash patterns. Now we're going to go to our tricolored light. And this is a dual stack tricolor. I'm only going to power up one of these for demonstration purposes here at this time. And you notice right now we're flashing a warning pattern with all three colors. Should I take the white wire and touch it to 12 volts, my third color, which in this light is my amber, will be steady burn. Remove it back. Now we can run through the flash patterns so that I only have two colors, like my red and my blue, flashing warning. I'm going to bump this and do the setup here to ground, touch it to ground, and I change patterns. And you notice I'm getting all three colors changing. Remember, if I push, hold it till the second dim, I back up a pattern. Now, this is a situation on these lights here where the third one, where I do the color swap, might play into effect, where I want this top light to start off with red first and the bottom one to start off on blue first. It just depends on how you want it set them up. So I do color swap on one and leave the other one alone, and now they will flash a red on the top, blue on the bottom for my warning. If I'm in the two color or a tricolor, the first color will swap with the second color. The third color is going to always be the same. You are not going to get that. Again, the fourth one down there is sequence type. Sequence 1, if I keep them both on 1, they flash simultaneously. If I put one on 1 and one on 2, I get alternating. And I'm going to do that in just a moment. First thing I'm going to do is take this guy back to factory preset so I can have them both on factory preset. And it's the third high. Now that's back to factory preset. I'm going to power the second light up here. And this light, I'm going to change the sequence type to 2. This is the same colored light. And we're going to go down and change the sequence type to number 2, which is the fourth one down, which should be the second high. High, low, off. High. Now, let's put these together. Reds to reds, blacks to black. And I need my greens tied together on this guy. That's how we keep it in sync. Put my blacks together. I am going to do one other thing on that light. Let's make sure it's on pattern number 1. And we're going to go through and make sure she's on pattern number 1. So I'm going to do a factory reset on this particular one. High, low, off, high. That's the third one. Okay, now let me tie those together. Now they're simultaneous. I changed that back. I'm going to change that to high, low, off, high. Now let's go back and connect that back on there. Now one is on sequence 1 and one is on sequence 2, and they will alternate back and forth. Again, remember, I take my white wires. If I happen to take a white wire and I go to 12 volts with one, steady burn. Comes back to the pattern. And I can do that on the other one also. I'll let her back up, and they flash back and forth. Okay? We're going to take this one back to factory preset again. High, low, off. High, low, off. High. There we go. And that completes the setup and programming of the nForce perimeter lights. Thank you for watching this technical video. Should you have any questions regarding any of our products, please contact our technical service department at 1-800-338-7337, and you push the number 4 for the technical service department, and one of the technicians there will be more than happy to answer any of your questions and help you with the operation or setup of our products. Thank you very much.